So in this video, we're gonna be going over how to identify and solve bottlenecks in your outbound process. So cold email and LinkedIn specifically. So what we're gonna do is just go through, basically it's step by step and analyzing the funnel. The first point is emails sent. So number of emails sent. Number 2 under that will be replies, positive reply. Underneath positive reply, we've got meetings booked. Then we've got meetings showed, next call / step, booked in, and then we've got closed. So if we look at the first one and we go number of emails sent, under that we've got replied, positive replies, meetings booked, meetings showed, next call or next step, and then closed. If we're looking at that, we can basically just clearly identify, well, what is the bottleneck? So I'll run through some very, very common ones. So first of all, number of emails sent. So we want to make sure that we're sending a good enough volume of outreach per day. Right? And obviously this depends on your market size. Typically, you want to be contacting your target market at least once every month. So depending on the size of your target market, say for example, it's 20,000 people in your total addressable market, decision makers, then obviously you're going to be sending, let's just say 1,000 emails a day because there's about 21 days in a work month. Right? And so that's typically the volume you need to send. If you've got a target market of 100,000 prospects, decision makers, then obviously you can scale up the volume from there and you see how it works, right? So that's point number 1. So point number 2 is going to be total replies. So if this is above one, so basically there's 2 aspects to this. One is total reply rate including out of office, and then the other is just reply rate in general excluding out of office. What we want to be looking at is that we're getting a reply rate of at least 1%. So that being excluding out of office. So reply rate of greater than 1%. That basically lets us know that we're landing in the inbox and all is good on that end, right? That's excluding out of office. Out of office, it depends on the season, depends on the time of year. This can go up, as far as you could be getting a 1% standard reply rate, and you could be getting a 3% out of office, 2%, 1.5%, really depends. So that's reply rate. So if we're getting above a 1% reply rate, then that's not bad. We're landing in the inbox, basically. Positive reply rate. Now, this really depends, and a lot of people like to say that they're getting an 80% positive reply rate or a 20% positive. Really just, it's quite deceptive when it comes to that. What we want to be thinking is how many positive replies are we getting per total number of emails sent, basically. So for example, a good metric that we look at when it comes to this is, are we getting basically a good campaign, like a really good campaign, typically gets 1 positive reply per 100 emails sent. So that's how we look at it. We don't work out the positive reply rate from the total reply rate. That can be a decent measure in some instances, but just for this purpose, we want to be looking at how many positive replies from each email sent, basically. So per 100 sent. Positive reply rate of 1%, so greater than 1%, is a great campaign when it comes to cold email outreach. You can get it higher. We've got it up to 3-4%, but 1% is a pretty good mark to get to at least, right? Obviously, it comes down to a few factors, which we'll get into. Meetings booked, on average, we convert about 1 in 5 positive replies into a meeting. So if we're getting at least a 20% meeting booked rate, then that's good. So at least 20% of positive replies are being converted into a meeting. Meetings showed, this really does depend on the industry, but typically we see about an 80-90% show up rate. In most cases, we get about 90% show rate. You got to be doing at least an 80% show rate. You can definitely get that up to like a 90-95% for sure. So we'll just leave that at 80 as a good show rate. Next call and next step really is going to be down to your sales process and also what you're offering, what you're selling, and basically how you go about your sales process, right? You may only need 1 call. You may need multiple calls. It really does depend. But getting this next call and next step booked in. A really good rule of thumb here that we like to see is that at least 50% is what we want to be aiming for. So 50% of meetings showed converting into a next call or step. That is something that we want to be getting to. It can be less initially, it can be more, but 50% is pretty good. So 1 in 2 of the calls that you show up with progress to the next stage, next step. Close, this again really does depend and come down to your sales process and also what sort of timeline that you're looking at. A lot of the clients and offers that we work with have a relatively decent sized sales cycle. And so it's very hard to say just on in a month cycle of what the close rate is for a lot of the offers that we work with. But again, The higher the better here. I'm not going to put a number to it today, but just due to the fact that it does really depend on every industry. But obviously the higher, the better. Typically take your inbound close rate, look at that, and then depends, but typically maybe halve that, right? And then you can get what you'd expect. So obviously inbound at the moment might be coming from referrals, word of mouth, and things like that. So if you're converting about 50% of the opportunities that you've got from outbound, you might be converting at 25%, for example. But it really does depend. I'm gonna go through each step now and look at some bottlenecks and how to actually solve that. So I've gone through basically a good percentages and good metrics to be looking at. But if we're not hitting those, what do we look at and why? And how do we solve that? So number of emails sent. This is obviously send as many as possible. It's dependent on your target market. Let's look at reply rate. So if you're not getting a 1% reply rate, then that's something that we need to fix pretty much immediately. Now, this can come down to the most common culprit is your deliverability. So basically you're not landing in the prospect's primary inbox, because basically a 1% reply rate is one person responding out of 100 people that you're contacting. So if one person isn't at least saying no thanks or not interested or remove me or whatever it is, then you're probably not landing in the primary inbox. And you've got to have enough data to back that up. But generally we'll be able to see after about 500 to 1,000 emails sent. So if it's not at 1% reply rate, definitely pause your current outreach. Then look at basically your infrastructure setup, so your emails and your domains, and look at if you're using a sending tool like SmartLead or Instantly or any others out there, you want to be looking at that warm-up score as well, making sure that you're not landing in spam in the warm-ups. Second to that, if you're getting a 100% basically percentage in your warm-up score, you've done some deliverability tests and all is good. You also want to be looking at your spam words that you're using, making sure it's plain text, and that solves the case in 99% of the time. If your warm-up score is low and you have been landing in spam and you know you have, pause all current campaigns and outreach from those email addresses. And basically you want to be setting up, depending on how big your target market is and how soon you want results, but I would definitely be setting up some new domains and accounts. And obviously this will take 2 to 3 weeks to warm up. So restart when those warm-up scores are at 100%, and also if you've got those new accounts ready to go. So now that we've got that solved, we need to look at the positive reply rate. So positive reply rate of 1% on emails sent. So 1 positive response per 100 sent. If we're not hitting a 1% positive response rate, then we obviously don't have something that the prospect really wants or is really just willing to respond to at the core of it, right? And so basically we want to be looking at what offer are you using? Like, what are you actually sending out? So obviously back to one of my other videos, which is basically going through each core principle. So obviously looking at your offer, looking at your social proof, looking at your lead magnet, so lead magnet and call to action. So basically looking at those 3 right there. That'll typically get us to a 1% if we fix those core 3. So your offer, social proof, and lead magnet. They're the 3 that are typically gonna get you to that 1% positive response rate and above in some cases. Right, so looking at your offer, what are you actually sending out? Your social proof and lead magnet. So prospects need a clear reason to reply and an obvious next step. So check out my other video if you want a bit more in depth on those 3, but you need to be looking at those 3, improve these as a whole, and generally if you crack that, you'll get a 1% positive response rate. The other thing as well, if you are getting close to a 1% response rate, but it's not exactly your 1% fly rate, but you have a massive target market and you're just scaling it out, just let it rip and you can just test as you go. So I wouldn't be pausing stuff to change and try and perfect it, but just let it rip and then you can adjust and improve over time to A/B test different emails by fixing these, right? But if you're getting an absolute horrible positive response rate, like you've sent out 5,000 emails and you've gotten 1 or 2 positive responses, then you definitely need to look at those 3 there, provided that you are getting a response rate, total reply rate of over 1%. Meetings booked. So if you're not converting 20% or more of the positive responses into meetings booked, a few reasons for this. Obviously, the core one is that prospects don't want to show up and or prospects don't want to go to a meeting with you at the core of it. So what is the next step? What's in it for them? Right? So maybe they've received the lead magnet from you, they've received more information about what it is you offer, what you do, but they just haven't seen the need to progress to that next step. Basically, the core of it is you need to really make sure that the prospect can understand what you do, what the cost of inaction is if they don't do what you're doing. Also, the social proof within there. So everything, every piece of content, every resource needs to contain those core elements in there. But the other thing as well is the response to the prospect. So if a prospect replies and you don't respond for a couple of days or a few days, then that rate is dramatically gonna go down. So you wanna be responding as quick as possible, typically within sort of 30 minutes is pretty reasonable. Within an hour is reasonable. Obviously any quicker is great. So 5 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes will probably get you some better results. And that's generally what we see. The other thing here that you can do if you are getting a low meeting book rate is also some warm calling. So you can call the leads, you can book them in that way, you can explain more to them, and also just see why they didn't book a call initially. And also the other thing is having some clear meeting times in your email back to them when they respond. So if a prospect just is uncertain about what the next step is, you're typically not going to see as many meetings booked as you would like. So typically it can be pretty easy to get this to a 20% meeting booked rate and beyond. So meetings showed. So 80% meeting show rate is the benchmark that we want to be aiming for, at least. If we're getting below this, the most common thing, again, reverse engineering. Why does a prospect, or why would a prospect want to show up to a meeting with you, right? And just reverse engineer that and actually think through, why would they? Because then sometimes you may think, yeah, they just want to book a meeting with me. Like, yeah, get them to book a meeting with me, whatever it is, right? And so they don't really know why they should book a meeting with you. So you really want to understand and just like jot that out, why they should book a meeting with you. As simple as it sounds, but like, why would a prospect want to meet with you and waste, well, in their mind, they could waste 15, 30, 45 minutes on a call with you. Basically, reverse engineer that, understand why they should, and then use that messaging in your pre-call sequences. So make sure if you don't already have some sort of pre-call sequence, pre-call reminder system in place to email, potentially text them if you have a pretty bad show rate. Texts aren't necessary, we use them every now and then, but basically just standard email reminders. So 24 hours before an event, 4 hours before an event, and then 1 hour before a meeting. That will generally get you there in most cases. In those pre-call reminders and sequences, we want to be nurturing those prospects with every chance that we get. So it could be your FAQs, it could be a video overview of what you do, it could be some case studies, social proof, whatever it is, they're generally what will get us the best results when it comes to that. The core is that you want to be showing up to meetings with prospects and they actually understand what you do and how you can help them, right? You don't want to be showing up to the meeting and have it an information sharing session where you're just wasting half an hour of your life explaining to the prospect what you do, why you're different, answering the same questions all over again, which is absolutely so annoying. So definitely don't want that. You want to be doing as much of the pre-work as possible, really. Just like do the work once, takes you an hour, takes you 4 hours, but you don't have to spend so much time on every call, and it speeds up that sales cycle. And it's just so much easier for the prospect as well. They can watch the content in their free time whenever they want. We're getting 80% show rate. Now, looking at the next call and next step at about a 50% conversion rate from there. A few things here. One is, are we actually reaching out to qualified prospects? So prospects that are in your market are a good fit for what you do. This comes back to really before we send out emails, which is the database, basically the lead list that we're going to be reaching out to, right? And so you want to make sure that that list is verified with, basically you can run AR research with different tools like Clay to make sure that they're companies that fit your ICP, fit your criteria, your size. For example, they might have to have 10 employees or more. And you can look at things like that, analyze the company description, just to make sure that that company that you're reaching out to is actually going to be a good fit, so that by the time you get on this call, you know they're going to be a good fit. The other thing here as well is not getting the next step booked in. So let's just say you had a great call. Obviously, not every call is going to go amazing. Some prospects are just going to get on the call, ask a few questions, you may explain some stuff, and they might just say, oh, look, it's not really a good fit right now, which is fine. It happens, it's sales. But basically, let's just say the call went well. A lot of times where I see a lot of deals drop off and a lot of deals just don't go through is that the salesperson or founder, the CEO, just hasn't provided a clear next step. So for example, when you're on a discovery call, let's say, right, we'll call it a simple discovery or intro call. At the end of that call, what's the next step? Where a lot of people, they're not already aware of this, is they'll end it, look, yeah, I'll send you some information, let me know when works best to catch up next. There's no clear next steps in there, right? And so a lot of things can come up in the prospect's world. They may forget about you, forget to respond to your email. The easiest thing here is just to get the next step booked in. Just ask the prospect, look, when would work next for you to catch up? Typically, this is next steps, right? Or you just explain the next steps and say, look, when would you like to catch up next? Couple points to do this. One is if the prospect says, oh no, look, we'll get back to you with a time, and they're just a bit uncertain, then you obviously know that maybe they're not that interested in what you offer for whatever reason. You can go a bit deeper and sort of say, oh, look, you don't really seem that keen to catch up again. Like, any reason for that? Is there anything I've missed today, or is it not a good fit? you can go into that and just go into that objection handling, right? You know, main point is just to not waste either of your time. But yeah, basically getting that next call, next step booked in the calendar, even if it's just a placeholder, this works really, really well, right? So, hey, mind if I just put in a 15-minute slot in a couple of weeks and we can catch up then, or something like that, right? If they're a bit hesitant to putting something in. If it's still a no, then obviously spend your time elsewhere, right? And that's provided you've answered some questions and objections and that sort of thing. If we look at the close rate, this really does depend on what it is you're offering, how big your typical sales cycle is. If you even from inbound leads, basically your average close time is 120 days or 240 days, then obviously outbound's not going to take any less than that, right? Your typical inbound basically sales cycle is 7 days. Okay, that's great, right? Outbound's probably going to take a couple weeks, maybe a few weeks. If you do a really good job, you can definitely get it to equal the same. Basically, we want to be focusing on these core pillars in order to maximize our results from outbound and make as much money as possible. If you have any other questions, definitely comment below or reach out, and I'm happy to help. We do have a couple offerings. Number one is our done for you. So if you want help for us to just manage this for you, there'll be a link below where you can book a call and we can run through what it would look like to work together. Second option is the done with you. So this option is basically because we couldn't help 95% of our market. And so basically if you want us to help guide you through that, we do run a 2-day workshop live where we help implement it for you and with you. And so that's a 2-day workshop. So obviously you don't have the ongoing retainer fees or anything like that. So this definitely works best if you're anywhere from sort of 300K per year up to 1, 2, or 3 million per year, potentially even more, depends on where you're at in your business journey. A lot of people, they might just want to run it in-house and not have to rely on anyone external. In other cases, they may just want us to do it for them. That's basically it for today. And there will be some other videos as well if you want a bit more in depth on each of these points.